just want to get your thoughts on term limits of board members and board members that are maybe there too long. In your experience with that?
There is one overriding advantage to having term limits, and that is to tactfully have a way of working through somebody who's outlived his usefulness as a board member.
Right.
Apart from that, I'm not sure that it serves any great value, but it does give people a chance to say, well, I'm going to re-up, or this would be a good time for you to exit. But I've seen it work well both ways.
One area you alluded to a number of times is not-for-profit versus for-profit boards. And my experience with not-for-profit boards is a lot of times the reason they invite certain board members is their ability to write a check each year.
Yeah, I think an organization has to decide whether they want a money board or a strategic board. And in many colleges and universities, that's almost a ticket of admission for the board. I doubt the effectiveness of that if that's the primary motivation, but I understand that it happens.
And then one other thing was just subcommittees. Can you talk at all about what have been good subcommittees?
The larger the organization, the more the need for subcommittees. In a smaller organization, really the board can act as a subcommittee of the whole. But in a larger organization, and especially with a larger board, subcommittees are almost essential to deal with the specific areas. Now, there are also some legal requirements here. You need an audit committee, for example, and either the whole board's going to do that or you're going to have a designated group to do it. But I think that properly handled subcommittees can do a lot of the more detailed work, and they can often do a lot of it in between board meetings. You can do it with conference calls or even specially called meetings. But the main value, I would say, is streamlining the general board meetings so that it can really focus on the most important things. I've actually been able to help a large organization that I'm a part of to make their board activity much more effective. And one of the ways was to focus on the subcommittees. And we had people coming to the subcommittees who just were walking in cold, and we went through all the reporting stuff. So even in the subcommittees, having the appropriate person in the company, the staff person, liaison with the head of that committee, say the CFO with the head of the investment and finance committee, and work through an agenda ahead of time, get the materials out, did the same thing for the committee in terms of upping its efficiency that prep materials did for the whole board.
Along the same lines, John, a question of subcommittee reporting to the main board. And when they do report, should the board accept their judgment and tacitly review the information, or how deep dive should the whole board go?
Yeah, that's a great question. The full board really should have the confidence of the subcommittee to have done their work. And so I think the reporting of subcommittees back to the full board should be very compact. And by the way, there are certain things that are actionable requiring either a decision by the subcommittee or a decision by the full board. And by the time you come to the full board meeting, there should be a checklist showing this is something that requires a board approval or a subcommittee approval, so that there isn't a lot of guessing about that. It's easy to do. You just have basically a chart. But there will be exceptions to it if there really is a knotty issue that the subcommittee doesn't have clear conviction on. It may need to be aired before the board. But the board chairman should be very much a part of that decision. Do we want to put this on the agenda and devote a half hour to it or whatever it is? But for the most part, the board should just be accepting committee actions.
John, you mentioned a board should be small or streamlined. In starting from scratch, how would you build that board, and what would it look like in terms of critical disciplines or experience? You know, what would the makeup of that board look like?
Well, I would look for a diversity of board members. I would look for people who have board experience. I would work with the CEO to think through how he wants that board to function, how often it should meet, under what conditions it should meet. Should there be a social component to it so they get to know each other a bit better? And those details can be fleshed out, maybe chatting with some other potential board members as to what they found works best or not. Your best board people are very busy people. And so you have to think about how that board experience can be rewarding to them as well. They're going to invest their time, whatever they get compensated for, it's probably not going to be enough to really be a financial incentive. But they want this to be a good learning experience, a pleasurable experience where they feel they're really making a contribution. And frankly, it's on that basis that we've been able to attract some of the finest corporate leaders in the country to serve on our boards. They're way above their pay grade, but they're willing to do it, A, because they're private companies and they don't have all the public company stuff to worry about, and B, because they just enjoy being part of the culture where they're talking about stuff that really matters. And so we've had good board participation.
The role of the chair in regards to issues that are voted on, in unanimous votes, split boards, and so on, and how split boards can just be devastating to an organization. Any comments on that?
Well, I have trouble thinking back in any of the boards I've been involved in where we have come down to a 5-2 vote, a 4-3 vote, a 7-2 vote, because the work of the board has been such that there's consensus on that issue by the time it comes to a vote. Now, if as the board chair, you know you've got a real split situation, you can force it and you can end up with probably a majority vote, but you may have left half the people in the wake behind you. And so a better way to do it, in my opinion, is to avoid that vote. Now, you're not ducking the issue, but you're saying, we've got to visit this another day. We've got to have some private conversations around this. We don't need to drop the sword of Damocles right in the middle of this board meeting and have people harden their positions. And I saw that very skillfully employed on a board that I serve on, where there really was some heated contention both ways. And the chairman just wisely said, I think we have a sense of where we are as a board. I don't believe we even need to vote on this, but let's move ahead on the basis of what we sense is the situation. So very respectful of the minority who would have voted no, but also the yes votes in that room understood what he was doing, and that there wasn't unanimity, and we needed to take that into account. Tricky, but we can get through it. Yes, sir.
I think one of the issues that I think we need to address, especially the way we've evolved, that's been successful in my eyesight, is to look at a nonprofit exactly the same way as a for-profit. The only difference between the two is whether you're going to pay taxes or not. The mission of the organizations are, each organization has a mission. You still have shareholders or donors, and you still have customers or beneficiaries of the organization. And I think that where most of the nonprofit boards go is, as the other gentleman referred to, buying a seat on the board is not necessarily a commitment to the organization, and it's no guarantee that you have the operational or social or accounting skills to manage. To me, a $5 million nonprofit and a $5 million for-profit are still $5 million organizations.
You're very much mirroring my own view on that. I think best practices are best practices. And good board people are good board people. And how many of you are serving on for-profit boards? A few of you. Most are obviously then serving on nonprofit boards. I think there's a lot that the nonprofit board can learn from the for-profit board, just in terms of good governance practices. I've learned a ton from a public company board that I take into our private company sector, just because there are right and wrong ways of doing things. And in the same token, I think the for-profit sector can be instructive for the nonprofit. Good point.
In the interest of time, I think we're going to have to wind up the formal program, but John is able to stay around and willing to answer questions, but I would like to take a few minutes to wrap up the formal program, and then we can continue with Q&A or small conversations for those who are interested.